Hi, my friends. Welcome back to Barriers and Boundaries, Resilience Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, DB. And of course, talking about resilience. Today's guest, we're going to jump into something that's very exciting, change worthy. Thayne Martin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk about It's Pure Love and the framework that we have. And goodness gracious, and we're not talking about how to motivate, but we're talking about changing behavior.
hmm
I'm curious, before we get into the experiential neuroscience and everything, where did this happen?
I will run through my story rather quickly 'cause it's so far behind me. All right. But just briefly, I grew up in East Phoenix, Arizona, had a wonderful mother and father, older brother, younger sister. I was the middle kid, right? So that should send you off with one signal, right? When you're the middle kid, I'm sorry, but it's a different experience. Okay. So normal life up until about age 4 or 5. Started being groomed by kids in the neighborhood that were a little older than me. Didn't know what grooming was. And then eventually, sadly enough for me, I was assaulted by an adult. That assault led to more assaults and then ultimately being drug into a pedophile ring that actually ran inside of my church. So I didn't get to go to church like everybody else did. I went to church and got peeled away from the congregation so ugly things could happen. So it was pure evil, and it impacted my life throughout literally my entire life. I have dealt with the most severe mental health problems that you could throw at a young man that I carried into adulthood because I never got help. I tried to outrun it, and that was one of the biggest mistakes I made, and a lot of that was driven by shame. I didn't want to talk about what happened to me because I didn't want people to think that I might hurt somebody else, because that's a common misconception about kids that have been abused, that they're going to abuse too. And that does happen, but it's only in about 5 to 8% of the cases. But that's not public sync. So that right there is also what kept me quiet. So I tried to live my life by outrunning the trauma. I had developed some really severe mental health things that most people have not heard of. And if they have, they don't understand it because they're often depicted in movies inappropriately. And it's unfortunate, but that's how I felt. I felt painted into the corner of you're a mental case and you'll never be healed. And ultimately, I was on 7 pillboxes through the system, through doctors who were going to help me, and they all had great intentions, but I ended up being a vegetable, completely over medicated most of my life. Interestingly, very successful in business, very successful. I did well, but my own mental health was also what led me to a break. It led to a break. I couldn't carry the facade of the mask, because who I was on the outside, presenting to the world, being the superstar up there on that stage, motivating people, selling multi-million dollar contracts, things like that. And then I'd go back to my hotel room and find my pillow, find my blanket, and literally go sleep in the closet, because the closet of the hotel room was safer for me than the bed. That was my life, right? So I really, for me, I had a near death experience. That was the complete shaking, wake the truck up thing, because I died. And when I died, I gave up my ghost and I went someplace else. And when I went to that someplace else, I learned a lot. And from that experience, when I came back, because I was fortunate enough to come back, okay, my life completely changed. And everything that mattered to me, especially material things, money, cars, all of that, that was always the thing I measured success by, has zero value at all. I buy my clothes on Temu today because I don't need to spend $400 on a dress shirt, which is what I used to do. I'd rather buy a $20 shirt and give the $350 to a homeless person so they can get an apartment. To me, that means value, right? So a death experience changes everything. And it did me significantly. And then I poured myself into, how do I fix myself? Because everything I had tried didn't work.
What you talked about in that experience, and I heard the phrase, it was pure evil. And then now you are focusing on it's
Pure
pure
love.
love.
It's pure love. Yes.
And we see the butterfly and the chain,
In my
which I
neck.
love.
This is the symbol of my company. This is the symbol of when you finish the course I teach, you become one of these, okay? And we call it a coolie fly. You become a badass butterfly that can kick ass in the world. And that's what you become. And that's what this is. It represents the four wings of balance, right? So you got to have a balanced body. You got to have a balanced subconscious mind that's designed to work for you and not against you. You have to understand that you have a voice. We call it the soul. It's the higher voice, and that higher voice can always overpower that lower body voice anytime, any place. You have to learn how to separate the thought and learn how to do that. And then lastly, this wing is your relationship with the thing upstairs, which everybody gets to define. What that is, how it works, that's not for me to tell you that. But I will tell you that you better have a relationship with that when you get on the other side, or it's going to be a rude awakening.
I like that you mentioned that because having experienced trauma in a religious setting, what you're talking about is a spiritual journey, a faith based journey. And sometimes people need that structure of religion. I get that. And sometimes some people have to find their way with their God or higher being or higher
I was
power.
100%. I was born into Mormonism because it was part of my family. My family literally were the hand carts pulling the wagons and the oxen across the plains. That was my family. And so most of my family was LDS. And sadly enough, that was also the same organization where there were some evil people. I understand it wasn't the church. I get that. Not knocking the Mormons. Do I have a lawsuit against them? Yes, because they knew what was going on and they, in a way, condoned it. So I'm suing them. Mostly because for me, when I'm successful in that lawsuit, that money's going into a nonprofit to help people that were abused. I'm not getting the money to line my pockets. I'm giving the money to build a nonprofit to help people that were like me, that were broken by the system and didn't know how to stand up. Right. So that's kind
Mm.
of what took me down.
And this work that you're doing now is to help people not get to that near death experience, to catch
No.
people,
Yeah.
help them understand, wake them up. Hey, you might
Yeah.
be over medicated, you might be dealing with trauma. How do we prevent you from getting to that near death experience as much? Stay away from the edge, so to speak.
I think here's something that's really important to point out is that I experienced physical trauma, sexual trauma, verbal trauma, all of that. But trauma doesn't have to be defined to that, okay? Trauma can also mean life because life is full of trauma. Life is full of things that happen to us as children, and unless we had emotionally intelligent parents that were there at the moment when you failed, you started writing a story in your childhood about something and it's incorrect. That's where self-limiting beliefs come from. And that's the trauma that ends up holding people back in life. So maybe you weren't abused in the way that I was, but maybe in sixth grade, you did something that ultimately you felt humiliation at a level that you realized you'd never put yourself in that situation again. And so you wrote the story as a 6-year old that I can't do this and I'll never do it, and then the rest of your life you embellish it and your ego does it to keep you safe and to justify your weakness, and that's ego. Okay, and then you realize late in life that there's so many things that you could have done but you never got to experience it because of that self-limiting belief that you created when you were a kid. But the problem with self-limiting beliefs are they sit in your shadow, and some people know what their beliefs are, but many of them don't. And the problem with that is if your subconscious mind is full of self-limiting belief that's limiting you, that also means you never even got a chance to see what could have been because your brain has got you trapped in literally the madness that you created. And that's what it was for me. I was trapped in my own mind and I couldn't get out until I learned literally a trick. It is a mental health hack that I have learned that has led to literally one of the coolest discoveries in mental health. And I have a neuroscientist that's on my staff now, and she brings 23 years of clinical study of neuroscience and psychology and pharmacology. So we're studying this crazy phenomena because the results I get when I teach it to people, mind blowing. It is mind blowing. And that's why it's going to be studied clinically and then ultimately be offered to the general public through certified channels. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. And that's kind of the, I don't know if the jump is the right word, but the shift in focus here. Someone learning, and it may not even be a traumatic experience of their learned behavior. They have learned behavior. Like if you grow up and your parents fight, maybe that's what you think marriage is supposed to be. something resonates and you say, nope,
Yeah.
that's not right. And then you go polar opposite and you're completely
Mhm.
unapproachable and when you need to be approachable in a relationship. There's so many things that subconsciously, I guess, we kind of develop. But I'm curious about, I talk about healthy employees create healthy organizations. How does the personal aspect of learned behavior translate to that employee behavior and impact culture, and they don't address things with their boss that they need to address with because, oh no, I don't speak up, I don't bring it up.
Everything you said is indicative of how our personal life shows up at work. Okay. And in the business that I'm in, we study it and it's quantifiable, right? So it's actually 360 billion problem in the United States alone. And what I'm talking about is not people not coming to work because of bad mental health. That's another number that I'm not even going to talk about today. That number comes from people that are at work that are not actually focusing on their job at work. Why? Because they're in what we call the default mode network. They've left what they're supposed to be focusing on and they're ruminating about something going on at home or in their past, or they're ruminating about something in the future that they're worried about. So what that means is that employee who is occupying the seat of which they are being paid to occupy, you're only getting maybe 50 of the cognitive performance out of that human because at the end of the day, they are simply distracted. And today, our modern society is the most distracted it's ever been because of these devices and our inability to control how these devices have actually changed the behavior of human beings and our minds. There's some really interesting stuff when you start studying the brain and how these are impacting, right? Our brains were not supposed to be knowing that there's a war on another side of the country and I got to deal with it in another side of the world. Think about it 200 years ago. You got a newspaper. You might read it once a month if you were lucky to find one. And the rest of the time, you were worried about what? Putting food on the table, minding your crops, maybe selling some moonshine you happen to make, whatever it was. But you weren't inundated with information. So think how rapidly we've accelerated the amount of information that I had to absorb and now manage and deal with. Our brains have not caught up with the explosion of technology. So what's going on? Most people are struggling. They're struggling because they can't stay present. So when I work with companies, the first thing we do, you have to fix the heart and mind of the employee. Most corporate culture change today, because I come from corporate America and led teams and teams and teams across this country. And I was also a manager that would hire a motivational speaker to come in, pay him 25 grand to sit in my sales seminar, pump my people up. They're amazing and they got everybody motivated, okay? But what happens Monday morning when that guy gets on the plane and flies home? So does that motivation. So did I change the behavior of the people? No, I entertained them for $25,000. What I didn't do is change their behavior. So how do you change behavior? It's through experiences. And that's ultimately where my work focuses, experiential neuroscience, because when you experience something, you're engaging all of the systems of the body at one time. And if you do it correctly, you'll retain around 90% of what you do versus only 10% if you sit in a seminar and read. Okay. So we don't even have a book. When you take the equation of life and abundant happiness and you bring it into your business, you're not going to get a book because I don't want you to read the book. I want you to experience what's in the book so that you remember it. So we teach by experience and we start by teaching awareness. So every employee begins with awareness training because every employee is generally out of habit. They're not staying present. They're in the past or they're in the future. So you have to recognize that we all have a brain and a body that is separate from me. Okay. That's an important distinction. And we teach this. Okay. Metacognition is one of the most important things you can have. And it's the highest form of intelligence. When you can separate yourself from the body and the mind and analyze and adjust your behavior real time, that's metacognition. So we teach that to everybody. And it starts with an understanding that there is a voice inside of us. And when you talk resilience, we all know about this voice because we've all used it. There's been a time in your life where you were knocked down, you were flat on your back, and yet there was something in your heart, in your mind that said, I'm getting back up. Okay. So that I'm getting back up, that is the voice of your soul. That is the voice of you, the observer. Okay. So you have to understand that there's two kinds of thoughts in the human brain. There's negative thoughts and positive thoughts. Okay. Negative thoughts always come from the subconscious mind and the body, always. And the reason that is because the soul, which comes from love, okay, cannot speak badly about itself. It cannot by design. So that means every negative thought I have, is it really me? It's coming from my subconscious mind and body that was designed to protect me. And that's what the mind and body does. And most people, their mind and body is programmed negatively because they've allowed it. Over time, we're drawn towards negativity naturally. That's why we rubberneck when we go by an accident. What happened to that guy? We're drawn to it. That's true.
Yeah, sticks like Velcro, I've always heard.
It's easy, right? It doesn't take any work to absorb negativity, but it does take work to find the positive. But the problem is our brains aren't trained to look for the positives. So I start with awareness training, number one. And I can train you by training your monkey using this bracelet, okay? This little bracelet that I've got right here, we teach a cognitive pattern interrupt sequence with this bracelet, okay? So I'm going to put this on your wrist. It's going to go on your non-dominant wrist. Every time these little balls strike the center of your hand, see them? Okay. I ask you to ask yourself, am I present? And if you are present, congratulations. Put a little tick mark in the center of the page. I was present. Okay. Then what you do is you hold those little balls. You see them? They're in my hand. Okay. When I force my brain to hold on to those little balls, it forces me to focus. You see? So now I'm holding on to these and I'm talking to you at the same time. But at some point, if I lose focus, these will drop. Okay. So how long did I hold on to these the last time I felt those? I went about 20 minutes before I lost focus. That's pretty good. All right. So what took you out of focus? I left the present moment and I was thinking about that argument I got in with my wife. And that's where I went. Okay. So now put a mark over here on the left. That's your past. Okay. So by the end of the day, what you end up with is tick marks, right? So you're going to find that most people have something that looks like this. So this is the present, this is the past, and this is the future. So at the end of the day of using this device, you're going to go, holy shit, I'm never present. I'm always thinking here, or I'm always thinking here. Okay. So now we see that I have a pattern that I've developed. And then I begin teaching you how to correct this behavior using this device, right? It's called a cognitive pattern interrupt sequence. And the body learns by repetition. That's the key. And it also learns when you combine repetition with things like emotion. So what happens if I use repetition and a strong emotion like love? Could that change how I show up in the world if I repeatedly experience love in a beautiful way? Yeah, that's exactly what experiential neuroscience is. We are using pro-social emotions to change how people show up, and we do it through lived experiences. Okay. So you're gonna have some initial training because I do have to train you how to use the bracelet. I got to take you through some things. Generally, it's about 8 hours of instruction. We break it up into 3 sessions, and then I send you out into the world with a deck of cards. And in that deck of cards are 101 experiences that are designed to see how you show up in life. So they go from very simple exercises that anybody could do. But by the time I get you to the back side of that deck, you're going to suddenly start doing some things where you're going to start finding your shadows, right? But the beautiful thing about it is in the design, it's all psychologically driven. Okay. So I use five pillars of psychology in every exercise. And when you combine these 5 pillars, somehow the brain turns into a supercomputer and it begins literally rewiring how your brain thinks and how it shows up. So usually by day 3 or 4 of what I call the chrysalis, your brain is now different because it's learning that fear, it doesn't mean stop. That fear actually means pay attention, there's something going on. And if I control and stay present, I'll actually have a happy outcome, you see? So
Mhm.
when the brain predicts failure, which I will do, right? So every card starts with safety. Because if you don't feel safe, you won't do the exercise. Okay. So know that everything starts with safety. Every exercise is with family, friends, or get this, the public. You're going to be doing some things with the public where you're going to actually interact with strangers. Okay. The most difficult exercises in the deck when you interact with strangers. And you're going to interact with strangers in such a way that it's going to blow your mind. Okay. When you learn how to interact with strangers, I teach you a very, very specific practice using gratitude. And I teach you how to manipulate your hormones. You're going to not believe me when I say this, and their hormones in this protocol. And if you do it correctly, at the end of this experience, we call it a gratitude cocktail. All right. And when you get one with a stranger, it'll change your heart. It'll change your mind. And you're going to have a what the heck moment. You're going to be like, what the hell is this thing? I've never felt this much love in my body or in my heart ever. But that
Well,
love is what heals.
yeah, well, confidence and love are definitely attracting aspects of a person. You wanna be around people that sometimes annoyingly love life a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's encouraging, right? And it's people want to feel good, which I like that you start with the safety aspect of people feeling safe, and a lot of studies on psychological safety in the workplace these days too, of being able to be yourself
Big
in the
part of culture,
workplace.
right? Yeah, it's a big part of culture. So when I work with companies, we use AI to measure culture. So we partner with a company that we deploy a system that analyzes all of the communication between people. Okay. So it uses 12 or 1,286 neurolinguistic programming sequences, and they're called signal paths. So it analyzes 12, basically almost 1,300 signal paths looking for communication between people. And then from that, it's actually able to show a CEO what is the current culture in my company. So we show them a burnout score. What is the burnout score in my company? Now it's on a dashboard. What is my psychological safety score in my company? Because if my people don't feel safe, that's a huge problem in my culture. So we gauge safety using AI. Okay. We also gauge execution risk, alignment risk, conflict. All of that is on a digital dashboard. So we come in, we deploy the software, we take a measurement of all your KPIs, what's important in the business. We take a measure of your culture real time. And then we come in and we train your employees. And over the next literally 2 weeks, you will see a significant change in the numbers in the dashboard because we're changing the hearts and minds of the employees. Okay. So imagine you're an employee and I work for XYZ company, and XYZ company believes in me so much and they understand the value that I bring that they decide to invest in me and in my life, because that's what we're actually doing. As a company, I'm investing emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and higher cognitive training to my employee. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that that employee now can come to work and is always going to be present for you because they've learned how to balance their emotional energy. So when I get into an argument with my spouse, before I would carry that anger and frustration to work, and then I would take it out. If I'm a manager, I took it out on my staff during my morning meeting. And maybe I ripped somebody's head off and I shouldn't have, but I did because I was still angry and pissed off from the conversation I had with my wife. And then that rattles somebody else who then pisses off Susie in accounting. And now Susie in accounting's upset. This is how it works. All right. But imagine if that employee got into the argument at home with their spouse, but they've learned how to balance their emotional energy in the moment. So right now, when I had that argument, I can maintain my emotional balance. I can get through it, solve it, and come out the other side with confidence because I know that I can balance anything emotionally because Thayne taught me the equation of life and abundant happiness. which is essentially using the five operators of math as applied to human emotion. That is what the equation life and abundant happiness is. And why it's so powerful is because it's simple, right? It has to be simple in order to be able to execute it routinely time after time after time. So, because of what happened to me when I was a kid, memory is a challenge for me. I developed a very different brain. I developed a brain that did not want to remember anything because if I remembered it, there's a good chance it would come back with something ugly. So most of my life, I've struggled with memory because my brain didn't want to remember. So to get around that, most of my life, I've used symbols and little things to keep me on track. So when I developed my core program, I developed it for me to heal me. Okay. What I didn't know is that I created something that would heal many. And because it's simple, it is incredibly easy to adopt, which is also what makes it so powerful. So I'm going to ask you some questions real quick because I'm going to show you how powerful this is. You're going to know the answers. Okay. What's the first thing you remember in grade school learning? First mathematical thing you remember learning?
1 + 1.
Yeah, addition, right?
Counting, yeah.
So addition, in equation life and abundant happiness, addition means adding those things in life that brings forth goodness and joy. That's addition. Subtraction is what you learned next. And subtraction is about letting go of those things that don't help you, that don't serve you, and don't bring you joy. So why the hell do we carry them as humans? We suck at that. We carry our shit when we should let it go. That's the truth. So add and subtract. Okay. And everybody can do that in the moment. Because when you're in the moment, what do I need right now? And what do I need to let go of to bring emotional balance after I had this fight with my husband? What do I need to do? Because I got to balance my emotional energy before I go to work. Because if I don't, I'm bringing that crap to work and that affects everybody at work, you see? So that's how you learn to teach and stay in the moment. So add, subtract. Multiplication is about growth and expansion. So after I've balanced myself and I'm actually neutral, I then apply action and attention. I gather friends, family, the world around me, my coworkers, and I multiply efforts and it gets bigger. Okay. So whatever it is I was working on, once I'm balanced and neutral and I apply action and attention, it gets bigger. So from a mathematical thing, we went from 100 to 1,000. Make sense?
And the idea that you connect people with their purpose or vision and at the same time that you're doing this, because let's take multiplication. 3 times 3 equals 9.
Mm-hmm.
If people have a problem with the 9, they try to force it to equal 10 instead of going back to say, no, this is a result of a pattern of 3, 3, 3.
That's
They don't
correct.
address the they don't address the patterns. They're so focused on the outcome
You don't see the
that
pattern.
you
Mhm.
don't see the pattern.
Yep, that's very wide that you pick up on that because that's exactly right. Because life, your behavior is nothing more than patterns, right? And our brains automatically look for the pattern that makes sense and it's the most known and the most comfortable. So if the pattern is always based on negativity and I push people away when I see the pattern, that's what your body and mind is going to do every time until you change the pattern in the body. You see, that's the biggest problem with most transformation programs and companies trying to change culture. Until you change the physiological response in the body and tie it to a new pro-social emotion, one of love, kindness, gratitude, and connection, the body will always serve up a negative response. You will always misinterpret it as negative, and you will stay stuck in your negative thinking. That comes from the body. That's why experiential learning sticks because you're going to do these exercises multiple times to train the body. You see, that's the difference in experiential learning because the body is what drives the behavior, right? I can think my way out of the hole, but if my body's still stuck in crap, I'm not getting out of this hole until the body understands that.
And that's why I like that whole take on it's changing behavior. The difference between inspiration and motivation, inspiration is internal coming out, motivation is external trying to go in.
Right.
And taking that, hey, look, let's not try to put something else onto someone that they have to be. Let's help them understand who they are and understand how to regulate what's coming out of them. That's game changer, right?
And when we talk about the word resilience, okay, resilience to me means confidence because ultimately that's what it is. Because I am resilient. Why? Because I know that no matter what life throws at me, and I do not care what it is, it can be the ugliest thing known to man. I know because I live the equation of life and abundant happiness that I can balance this at any moment. There's nothing that can knock me off of my happiness. Nothing. Nothing. So that means I have the ultimate confidence, which makes me resilient because I don't care what you do to me. I will stand up every single time. Why? Because I have a higher voice that can always tell that lower voice, no, you're wrong. Hey, amygdala, thanks for serving up fear. Thanks for serving up anger. I see it. And I also understand that you served that up based upon past history. But I'm not that person today. And I understand you want me to get fear and angry right now. And I normally would. But if I play fear and anger, I'm going to decimate this room and I'm going to decimate and hurt the people standing in front of me. So thanks. I'm going to shake my bracelet. I'm going to control my amygdala and I'm going to breathe. And in that process, I've transferred it from my amygdala to my prefrontal cortex. Literally, this action right there,
Mm.
a nasty thought from the amygdala, slowed it down, took it out of the amygdala, and allowed the prefrontal cortex to come online so that I could say, hey, yep, thank you for the fear, but you're wrong. Because here's what I've done since then, body. I've done X, Y, and Z. And why I might have failed at that in the past, I am not failing to that today. So we're going a different direction. And this is what we're doing. Update your story. And that's exactly what the body does. It updates
Yeah.
the story. Yeah.
Uh,
We use this bracelet for any negative thought every time. Change the thought. Where's it go? Right? It's crazy how it works. The
yeah.
results that are nuts, but it's because I'm training the
I
monkey.
love the brain. I love the neuroscience and that cognitive behavior too. What's the best way to get in touch with you? People listening, people that want to engage more. How do we
How
promote
do
you?
you find? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do some things that are different, right? So my website is itspurelove.com. ITSPURELOVE.com. We are a neuroscience company. We teach neuroscience. We change people's behavior using proven methodologies that stick. All right. We work with companies in culture. We use AI to measure and gauge culture. Then we use experiential learning and neuroscience to actually change the underlying behavior of the employee, right? So we do it in companies. And then we also do it by group through workshops at which you can sign up online. So you would end up getting a deck of 101 experiences and the experiences are beautiful. So I'm going to share one with you in your audience that you guys can do as an example. So this is a card in my deck. It's called Gradagram. And what Gradagram is I ask you to take out your phone and think of 3 people that have significantly touched you in your life. 3 people, okay? And you're going to take out your phone and you're going to hit record. And you're going to record a very deeply emotionally felt message for that person. And they're not expecting it. They don't know this message is coming and there's no retakes. Okay. This isn't about perfectionism. This is about pouring from the heart. So it goes something like this. Hey, Mary, it's been a while since I have actually expressed how I really feel about you. And I want you to know, Mary, how much I appreciate you in my life. And I know we've been friends for 15 years. And in that 15 years, we've both gone through some big things, some big highs. And I certainly have had my share of big lows. And in those big lows, there was always somebody named Mary that was standing there with me, helping me stand back up when I didn't want to stand back up. So I wanted to reach out to you today to tell you how much you mean to me, how grateful I am for the love that you put into the world, and specifically the love that you give to me. I want you to know that I see you, I appreciate you, I love you dearly, and I hope you have a spectacular day. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being you and for being in my life. Boom, send. Okay. Send that to 3 people. You want the video to be about 2 minutes in length. Okay. The reason I want that length and I want you to pour your heart into it because when they get this video, you're going to open their heart too. And then you're going to learn the most powerful thing in the world. Okay. It's gratitude. That's what I teach. My phrase, the motto in my company is dare to be second. And I flipped the script on the hustle culture because the most powerful position in the world is not first place. It's not, it's second place. And when you learn that and you understand the power of second, that's when life takes on a whole new meaning, right? That's why my bracelet says gratitude, dare to be second, because that's what you learn to live in the equation life and abundant happiness. You learn to live from second place. And when you do, your life takes on a whole new meaning. And then you live abundant. And then you never have a shitty day. People that finish my course never have shitty days because they can balance their emotional energy, and you learn and exercise. And you learn that if I do this protocol, I can literally go into the world, any place, anytime, and fill my heart with love and light. And I will create ripples in the world that will always come back to me. Because when we ripple gratitude, gratitude is always bidirectional. It comes back to us. That's the most beautiful thing, right? So in my course, the tools that we use are love and gratitude. And with that, you can heal the mind. I healed mine.
Love it. Thank you so much for that. I can't think of a better way to end a conversation of this magnitude than with gratitude.
Yeah. It's secret
And
sauce, man. It literally is.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
People don't
thank
realize that gratitude is neuroscience. They don't. And I didn't either. I figured this all out by accident. It was accident. But then I started studying it. And then I met a stranger that did something for me that was kind. And I thanked him in a way that I'd never done before. And then I got my first gratitude cocktail and I said, "What the hell is that? I want another one." And then I started studying it. And 2 years and $250,000 later, I know exactly how to do it and what it is.
grataholics.
Yeah, yeah, gratitude.
Oh goodness. What thank you again so much
My
for
pleasure.
this, and please go check out itspurelove.com. Follow up with Thane. Focus on the gratitude exercises. Find out what these other cards are about,
Yeah,
and we'll keep fighting the good fight and keep pushing
appreciate it.
for
Thanks for having
resilience.
me on, and thanks for doing what you do and the goodness you put in the world. I know podcasting's not easy. I did 275 live podcast episodes from a park, so I know what it takes.
Oh
So my
wow.
hat's off to you, my good man. Thanks for your effort. Thanks for putting good stuff into the world and allowing me on your podcast. I appreciate you.
No, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It's an honor to hear from that hear from you, and man, keep fighting.
Let's go.
All right, EB out here.